Ang ganda. So finally, dumating na yung order natin from Nike. At guys, ito nga pala yung shirt ni Alex Eala.
What was it like designing a kit with Nike that included the national flower of the Philippines? That's so cool.
That was actually a surprise for me. My agent sent me over the presentation of this Sampaguita project that Nike had made. It was like 2 nights before my match at Wimbledon. It was so beautiful. Like the message behind it was great. I felt that it fit me so much. And I was so lucky that I got to play on center. The stars aligned for me. I mean, would have aligned even more if I'd won. But
a tennis star drops a simple Nike collection and suddenly the internet behaves like someone just leaked free tickets to every final ever played. Within hours, everything is gone. Servers are crying, fans are refreshing like it's a full-time job, and then Nike shows up with a luxury surprise that nobody saw coming. The real question is not how fast it sold out, but what exactly they handed her afterward, because that gift changed everything.
Nike just helped make history at Wimbledon with a hair tie. Tennis player Alex Eala is the first player from the Philippines to make the main draw at Wimbledon. For her debut, she wore a custom hair tie by Nike featuring the Sampaguita, or jasmine flower, which is the national flower of the Philippines. In the gift box, Nike also included a Filipino proverb in Tagalog, and it read, "Kung may tinanim, may aanihin." I hope my Tagalog's okay. It basically translates to, "You reap what you sow." Alex called the Sampaguita flower a reminder of where she came from. It's incredibly rare to see a Filipina athlete wearing her culture proudly on a global stage like this. Center court.
A launch designed to be quiet rarely survives contact with real audiences, and what was supposed to be a controlled rollout of a new athlete collection ended up behaving less like a product release and more like a global stampede that no one in the building, not even the engineers monitoring server loads in real time, could fully explain as it unfolded.
Alex Eala is on the verge of making history. With just days to go before the Wimbledon seeding cutoff, the Philippine star is sitting on a provisional ranking of number 33. That puts her right in the bubble for a seeded spot at the biggest tournament on grass. But is it enough? The maths is getting intense, and the race to June the 22nd is officially on. Here's the deal. If Alex stays inside the world top 34 by next Monday, she's likely seeded. We've already seen Hailey Baptiste sidelined with injury.
The moment the countdown hit 0, everything that usually behaves predictably in the digital retail world stopped behaving that way entirely. Traffic did not just increase, it surged in a way that collapsed assumptions built on years of previous athlete launches.
Say what you want, but tennis, the WTA has a superstar in Alexandra Eala. As much as I've been saying for the last 2 years, tennis needs a superstar, yes. They have stars. They have Coco Gauff. They have Iga Swiatek. They have Sabalenka. However, when it comes to selling out those first, second, third round matches, the Philippine fans, they show up, they show out. And they've been doing this since at least the US Open when I first noticed it, when she had that amazing match versus Clara Tauson. Now, Clara Tauson just beat McCartney Kessler, and I would love to see Eala versus Tauson play.
Within half a minute, the entire system began to buckle, and what followed was a complete breakdown of expectations as the first signature collection of Alex Eala moved from anticipation to chaos almost instantly.
I love that Kim mentioned Alex Eala because I know you two are besties, but I will also say I watched your vlog that you shot a few weeks ago, and you appeared to be besties with pretty much everyone. You were tight with Maya Joy. You were talking to Dasha Kazakina. Who else was in that one? Priscilla Hahn. So many.
No, yeah, girlhood forever. So it's just, we're in this together. Like, we see each other more than we see.
Fans were not simply browsing. They were competing in real time, and the intensity of that competition was strong enough to overwhelm even the infrastructure of Nike, a company accustomed to handling global attention at scale. What made the moment even more striking was that this was not driven by traditional hype cycles or advertising saturation. Instead, it came from a deep emotional pull that had been building for years, especially among Filipino supporters who had followed Eala's rise from junior promise to professional relevance on the world stage. As the collection appeared online, the response was immediate and almost instinctive, as if millions of people had agreed without speaking that this was not just merchandise, but representation. The servers did not fail because of marketing success in the usual sense. They failed because demand behaved like identity expression, and identity expression does not scale neatly. In less than 4 hours, everything was gone. The tennis dress inspired by national colors disappeared first, followed closely by the warm-up pieces and accessories that had been carefully designed to reflect a blend of sport and cultural symbolism. The limited edition footwear, which had been positioned as the centerpiece of the release, vanished with the same speed as the rest of the collection. What remained afterward was not inventory, but disbelief, especially among those who had assumed they had time. Across different time zones, fans who had stayed awake through the night found themselves staring at empty pages and refresh errors, realizing too late that hesitation had no place in this kind of digital moment.
Behind us, it's been rehearsed, of course. We're a little bit later on, and we cannot wait.
Alex's moment.
This is going to be Alex's moment.
Well done, well done.
Later, can we talk about Jeff Soren for a second?
Oh,
I mean,
what do you guys call him? Fucking wanker, right? Or whatever. He's wearing that thing. He's all dressed up and ready to go.
Maybe I was wrong. Maybe it was me that was wrong. I prejudged this tournament because so far, games have been decent. We've seen some decent goals. And Alex Eala is out here on day one calling people full kick wankers. I mean, what more could you want?
The reaction inside Nike itself carried a different kind of tension, one shaped less by excitement and more by surprise at the scale of engagement. Executives and analysts reviewing early data could see immediately that the performance did not fit standard forecasting models. Even in comparison to major athlete launches involving globally recognized figures, the velocity of sales stood out. In internal discussions, the language shifted quickly from success to anomaly, because what was unfolding could not be neatly categorized within normal commercial expectations. It was not just strong demand, it was concentrated, emotional, and geographically widespread in a way that suggested something deeper than typical consumer behavior. A significant part of that depth came from the global Filipino community, which responded with remarkable coordination, despite having no formal coordination at all. Orders flowed in from Manila and Cebu, starting long before the release day. Earlier collaborations and small design gestures had already introduced recurring motifs inspired by the Philippines' national flower, which gradually became associated with Eala's identity on court. That symbol evolved into something larger than design language. It became a narrative device that tied performance, heritage, and personal growth together.
Her total jumps to 1,470 points, making her almost untouchable. But don't exhale yet. There are 4 danger zone players breathing down her neck. Ostapenko is the biggest threat. One win in Nottingham could nudge her ahead. Then there's Raducanu and Krejcikova.
By the time the signature collection arrived, the audience was not just buying products, they were buying into a story that had been written in pieces over several seasons of competition and visibility. Inside the collection, every item carried layers of meaning that went beyond aesthetics. The apparel incorporated visual cues drawn from national identity, while accessories reinforced the idea of continuity between athlete and origin. The footwear, however, carried the most symbolic weight, combining personal signature elements with national iconography in a way that merged individual achievement with collective pride. This blending of identity and performance is part of what elevated the launch from a commercial event into a cultural moment, because it allowed fans to see themselves reflected in something globally visible. Yet even as the numbers broke internal expectations, the emotional story behind the launch was already shifting elsewhere, away from servers and sales graphs and toward a quieter moment taking place thousands of miles away. The following morning in London, Eala experienced a very different kind of response to the same event. While the world processed sellout reports and social media reactions, she was met not with data, but with a physical delivery. A carefully prepared package that stood apart from anything associated with standard commercial success.
With Alex, we're very close. Like it's not like we're just friends just in tennis. Like we're friends like even outside of tennis. Like we talk a lot. We try to spend some time together, which is not very easy. But yeah, we met in, I would say, 2021, around that, and since then, like, we're very good friends. And I love to be friends with all of them because, like, it's just like the struggles that we go through and the problems that...
What arrived was not simply a congratulatory gesture, but something far more intentional in its design and presentation. Inside the package was a luxury-crafted piece that reflected both personal recognition and symbolic storytelling, centered around the same floral motif that had come to define her public image. The item itself, a finely detailed necklace shaped with precision, carried the visual language of her journey in a form that could be worn, not just remembered. Alongside it was a handwritten note that tied the entire narrative together, referencing growth, patience, and the idea that development is not sudden, but cultivated over time. The tone of the message mattered as much as the object itself because it reframed the entire launch from a commercial milestone into something closer to personal validation. That early stage of her journey, once viewed as simply developmental, now appeared in retrospect as the foundation for everything that followed. As she processed the moment, the contrast between public scale and private meaning became striking. On one side, there were global sales figures, server failures, and industry-wide commentary about unprecedented demand.
And then, the number one, Carlos Alcaraz was at like 28,000. The women's number one, Sabalenka, I think was around 9,000. I mean, Eala's numbers were blowing them out of the water. Like, the popularity she had was not even close to anyone else. No one could match her. She was doubling second place Novak Djokovic, who's won 24 Grand Slam titles. But he can't catch Alex Eala in this category. She's already top of the chart in this way of looking at the sport. So I thought that was really...
On the other side, there was a single object resting quietly on a table, carrying a message that reduced all that noise into something personal and grounding. The emotional weight of that contrast is what made the gesture resonate so strongly, because it shifted attention away from performance metrics and back toward origin, effort, and identity. The deeper significance of the entire sequence becomes clearer when viewed as a continuous progression rather than a single event. The early symbolic gestures, the growing visibility on international stages, the increasing recognition within global campaigns featuring elite players such as Carlos Alcaraz, and the steady rise in cultural relevance all contributed to a moment where commercial success and emotional connection collided. By the time the signature collection launched, it was no longer just about sportswear, but about representation at scale. What followed in the aftermath was a realization within the industry that traditional metrics were no longer sufficient to explain what had happened. And yet, despite all the attention placed on numbers, charts, and sellout speed, the most enduring part of the story remained the simplest element of all: a quiet acknowledgement that success at this level carries meaning only when it remains connected to its origins.
Could you speak a little bit about your friendship with Alexandra Eala and how important is it to have good friends on tour given a busy schedule?
I mean, Alex is a really nice girl. I've known her for a really, really long time, but I feel like we kind of started getting more closer once we were both on the tour. I think it's really important sometimes to find little joy in we're all on the road for so long, and these are the years where we're kind of finishing high school or going into university, and usually like at this age I feel like you might have like a big social friend group, but of course with what we do we're always traveling.
The necklace, the note, and the symbolism embedded within them served as a reminder that even global phenomena are still built from personal beginnings. The story did not settle after that moment of quiet recognition, because events like this rarely end where people assume they do. And what looked like a final emotional beat was actually the beginning of a much wider ripple effect that continued spreading through both the sports world and the business side of global athletics. Inside Nike's internal ecosystem, the aftermath of the launch became a case study that nobody could agree on how to categorize. Some departments treated it as a breakthrough in athlete branding. Others saw it as a cultural anomaly, and a few quietly admitted that their existing forecasting systems had not even come close to anticipating this level of synchronized demand. Instead, it behaved like a global network, reacting to identity cues in real time, where purchasing decisions were influenced as much by emotional belonging as by product design. This shift forced executives to reconsider how they understood athlete-driven commerce, especially when the athlete in question, Alex Eala, represented not just performance on court, but a symbolic connection to an entire dispersed community.
The beautiful picture of you in between Rafael Nadal and Iga Swiatek as you graduated at the academy over there.
I saw that in the morning, and I just. Wow, it was so. Wow.
It must have made you reflect on the journey from there to here. There it is. What a beautiful picture that is.
No, it's crazy because when I look at this picture, I'm the same girl, and the circumstances have changed so much. I really knew that one day I would have the chance to play her, but I didn't know that it was gonna be this week.
While these conversations unfolded in boardrooms, the public narrative was evolving in a very different direction. Social media platforms became flooded with reactions that blended excitement, frustration, disbelief, and humor, often within the same thread. Fans who managed to secure items posted unboxing videos that quickly gained traction, while others turned their disappointment into memes that ironically only amplified the visibility of the collection even further. In an unexpected twist, the sellout itself became part of the marketing legacy, as scarcity reinforced significance in a way no advertising campaign could have engineered. Meanwhile, analysts tracking the data noticed something even more unusual than the speed of sales. Engagement did not drop after the sellout announcement. Instead, it increased. People who had missed the drop continued searching, discussing, and sharing details of the collection long after purchasing was no longer possible. Yet this moment demonstrated a different form of power, one rooted in emotional alignment between athlete and audience. In that framework, success is not only defined by victories on court, but by the ability to activate collective identity at scale. It was a shift that placed Eala in a category that traditional models struggled to define with precision. At the same time, the narrative around the luxury gift sent to her hotel room in London began to take on a life of its own.
One of your team members, Alex Eala, is about to play her first Australian Open main draw. You're a former Australian Open champion. Do you remember your first Australian Open? And do you have any advice for her going into this?
I remember first time I was playing third round against Maria in the River Locker Arena. I was so nervous, even, I don't know, even I couldn't work on the court. Yeah, even after finishing the match, back to the locker room, I was like, oh, match is finished. Yeah, but I think I really love her personality.
Without any official framing beyond what was visible, fans and commentators began interpreting the gesture as a symbolic acknowledgement of a new phase in her career. The fact that it arrived immediately after a historic commercial moment only deepened that interpretation, as if one milestone had triggered a reflection of another. Even though the item itself was simple in presentation compared to the scale of the launch, its meaning was amplified by timing and context. Eala herself remained largely focused on training and competition schedules, but the environment around her had clearly shifted. Media attention increased, sponsorship conversations became more complex, and public expectations began to rise in parallel with her visibility. This is often the point where young athletes either stabilize under the weight of attention or begin to feel the pressure distort their trajectory. That grounding became increasingly relevant as external pressure intensified because it provided a reference point that was independent of commercial success or media narratives. Still, the scale of what had just happened with the Nike launch ensured that she could not simply return to being just another player on tour. Every tournament appearance now carried an added layer of audience expectation, not necessarily tied to winning, but tied to presence. Fans were no longer only tracking match results. They were tracking evolution, branding, and identity expression through performance.
Yeah, well, I think on social media, in terms of that metric, the biggest thing I've noticed actually is that this tournament is the Australian Open YouTube channel. Yeah. They uploaded 29 of the pre-tournament press conferences that the players did, and mostly it's the biggest stars in the sport. And then also Eala, who is clearly one of the biggest stars. And before, as of today, I was looking at the view counts for these videos. Eala is in first place among all 29 of these top Australian Open players. I think at the time she had about 173,000 views on this YouTube video of her press conference. But the second place was Novak Djokovic, who I think had about 80,000.
That kind of attention changes the atmosphere around every serve, every rally, and every post-match interview. Interestingly, within Nike's broader athlete portfolio, the success of the collection began influencing internal discussions about future collaborations. The performance data suggested that culturally rooted storytelling had significantly higher engagement retention compared to purely performance-based marketing campaigns. As these strategic conversations unfolded behind closed doors, the public-facing story continued to evolve in unexpected ways. Secondary markets began reflecting increased interest in the sold-out collection, with resale activity indicating that demand had not disappeared, but simply shifted channels. At the same time, fan communities continued producing creative interpretations of the designs, from custom artwork to symbolic edits that linked the collection to broader themes of heritage and pride. What emerged from all of this was a rare alignment between athlete identity, brand storytelling, and audience participation, where each element reinforced the other in real time. The collection has already sold out, the gift has already been delivered, and the headlines have already been written, yet the underlying story continues to evolve through every match, every appearance, and every new interaction between athlete and audience. What began as a single product launch has effectively become an ongoing narrative about identity, representation, and the unexpected scale at which emotion can move through modern sports ecosystems.